My brother's girlfriend was cheating on my brother for money, but what she wanted to do surprised us all. I never expected my own brother to fall for a girl like her. I saw the warning signs from the beginning, but love has a way of making people blind. And my brother? He was the easiest target for someone like Olivia. It all started when my brother, Daniel, met her at a charity gala. Our family has always been well off, not billionaires, but successful enough to be comfortable. My parents built their wealth from the ground up, and my brother and I grew up with a solid foundation. But while I stayed cautious and practical, Daniel was the kind of guy who wanted to believe in fairy tales. He thought love could conquer all. Enter Olivia. She was beautiful, I'll give her that, sleek black hair, perfect smile, the kind of woman who knew how to turn heads in any room. But beyond the surface, I sensed something off. She was too polished, too perfect, like she had rehearsed every move. The way she looked at Daniel wasn't love, it was calculation. I knew it from the first time I saw them together. Isn't she amazing? Daniel gushed one night, swirling the wine in his glass as we sat in the lounge. She's smart, kind, and she just gets me, you know? I smiled, but it was forced. She gets something, all right, I muttered under my breath. What? Nothing. I took a sip of my drink and changed the subject. Daniel was head over heels, and nothing I could say would change that. Olivia worked fast. Within a few months, she had ingrained herself into our family, charming my parents and making herself at home in our world. She never made any outright moves, never asked for money outright, but the signs were there. First, it was the little things, mentioning how her apartment was too small for Daniel to stay over, how she wished she could have a nicer car because her old one kept breaking down. Then, she started getting close to our mother, talking about marriage, about how she wanted a big family, a secure future. A few months later, she moved in with Daniel. At first, it was innocent enough. She claimed she just needed a place to stay while her lease ended. But once she was in, she wasn't leaving. She started redecorating, using Daniel's credit cards to fund small renovations. She convinced him to upgrade his lifestyle, more vacations, more shopping sprees, more expensive dinners. My brother, bless his naive heart, saw it as love. I saw it for what it was, manipulation. And then came the moment that set everything into motion. One night, I overheard a phone call. Olivia was in the study, speaking in hushed tones. Just a little longer, she said. He's completely under my control. Once we get access to his trust fund, we're set. I froze. My stomach twisted as I pressed myself against the wall, heart pounding. I had been suspicious of her from the beginning, but this was confirmation. She wasn't just after Daniel's money, she was planning something bigger. I knew I had to act fast. I recorded everything. Every transaction she made on Daniel's accounts, every suspicious move, every conversation where she subtly pressured him into spending more. I needed proof. But more importantly, I needed to make sure my family wouldn't fall for whatever she had planned next. Because knowing Olivia, she wasn't just here to take Daniel's money. She was coming for all of us. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying Olivia's words in my mind. He's completely under my control. My brother, Daniel, the same guy who once swore he'd never let love blind him, had become nothing more than a pawn in her game. But I couldn't just tell him the truth. That was the tricky part. If I marched into his room and told him Olivia was scheming to take his trust fund, he wouldn't believe me. He was too deep, too in love, too convinced that she was his forever. I had to be smart about this. The next morning, I met with my parents. They had always trusted my judgment, but I knew Olivia had been working hard to win them over. She had played the sweet, doting girlfriend perfectly. My mother, especially, had fallen for it. She just adores Daniel, she had told me once, smiling. She wants the best for him. I had to shatter that illusion, carefully. We sat in my father's study, the weight of my words settling heavily in the air. She's after the family money, I told them. She doesn't love Daniel, she loves what he can give her. My father frowned. That's a strong accusation. I have proof. I pulled out my phone, showing them the recording I'd taken of Olivia's call. The audio was clear, her voice, full of certainty, talking about when she'd have full access to his trust fund. My mother's face drained of color. Oh my God. She's been slowly getting him to spend more and more, testing the waters. If we don't stop this, she'll find a way to marry him and take everything. My father sighed, rubbing his temples. We need to be careful. If we come at him directly, he'll push us away. Exactly what I had been thinking. We set a trap, I said. We make her expose herself. My father looked at me. What do you have in mind? I smirked. She wants money. Let's give her exactly what she's after. The next phase was all about playing the long game. I had to act like I believed in Olivia's love for Daniel. I started being friendlier, more open, asking her about their future, pretending I was warming up to her. She ate it up. I'm so glad we're finally bonding, she said one evening, smiling as she sipped on wine. Daniel really loves you, you know. It means so much to him that we get along. I forced a smile. Yeah, family is everything, right? She nodded enthusiastically, her eyes gleaming. I wanted to laugh. Step 1, make her comfortable. Step 2, bait her. A few days later, I accidentally let it slip during dinner that my father was considering transferring a large portion of the family wealth into a private offshore account. Something about taxes, I said casually, taking a sip of my drink. He wants to make sure the money is protected. He's finalizing the details next week. I didn't miss the way Olivia's hand tightened around her fork. Wow, she said, playing it cool. That's a lot of money. I shrugged. Yeah, but Daniel's trust fund will still be accessible. So he'll be fine. That was it. That was the moment. I saw it in her eyes, the flicker of calculation, the tiny spark of urgency. She had to act fast. And sure enough, she did. That night, Daniel came to me, confused. Olivia thinks we should get married sooner. Bingo. She brought up marriage? I asked, feigning surprise. Yeah. He rubbed the back of his neck. She said she doesn't need a big wedding. She just wants to start our life together. I nearly rolled my eyes. Of course she did. That's kind of sudden, I said carefully. You sure you're ready for that? Daniel sighed. I love her, man. But yeah, it feels rushed. I pretended to think. Maybe she's just scared about the future. You know, with Dad moving the money and all. He frowned. You think that's why? I shook my head quickly. No, no. I mean, she loves you. She's probably just worried about what happens next. Daniel still looked uncertain, but I knew I had planted the seed of doubt. That was all I needed. The real bombshell came 2 days later. It was late at night when Olivia left the house, dressed suspiciously well for a casual outing. So I followed her. She met up with a man at an upscale restaurant, a man I recognized. Oliver Grant. A high-end divorce attorney. I managed to snap a few photos from outside. They were discussing something serious, Olivia leaning in, her expression urgent. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. I knew exactly what was happening. She wasn't just planning to marry Daniel. She was planning her exit strategy. A quick, quiet wedding. A few months of playing the perfect wife. And then? A divorce that would guarantee her a massive settlement. She wanted half of everything. I had all the proof I needed. Now, it was time to destroy her. I barely slept that night. My mind raced with everything I had uncovered, Olivia's scheme, her secret meeting with the divorce lawyer, her rush to marry Daniel. She wasn't just after his trust fund. She wanted everything. But I wasn't going to let that happen. The next morning, I sent the pictures of Olivia and the divorce lawyer to my father. Got her. What's next? His response came almost immediately. Time to let Daniel see the truth for himself. I couldn't just tell my brother what was happening, he'd find a way to rationalize it, to defend her. Olivia had her claws too deep in him for that. No, he had to see it with his own eyes. And so, we set the trap. That evening, my father called for a family meeting. Olivia, of course, played the part of the devoted girlfriend perfectly, sitting beside Daniel with her hand in his. We've decided to move forward with the financial transfers, my father announced, leaning back in his chair. The lawyers will finalize the paperwork in 2 days. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Olivia tense ever so slightly. "Daniel," my father continued, "this means your trust fund will remain untouched, but the rest of the family's assets will be secured in an offshore account. It's the best move to protect our legacy." Olivia's grip on Daniel's hand tightened. "So," my father added, looking straight at her, "it's good to know that anyone marrying into this family is doing so purely for love, not for money." She forced a smile. "Of course. That's all that matters." It was almost too easy. Over the next 24 hours, Olivia made her move. I knew she would. The next night, Daniel and Olivia went out for a special dinner. I already knew what was coming. 2 hours later, I got the text from Daniel. "She proposed to me." Bingo. I took a deep breath, my fingers tightening around my phone. It was exactly what I had been waiting for. Now, I just needed one last piece of proof. I sent a message to my father. Time to finish this. The next morning, my father called Olivia into his office for a private conversation. She didn't know I was listening from the next room. "I have to admit," my father began, "I was surprised to hear that you proposed to Daniel." Olivia laughed lightly. "I just love him so much. I didn't want to wait any longer." "How convenient," my father said coolly. "Right before the financial transfers, too." A beat of silence. Then Olivia spoke again, her tone careful. "That's not why I did it. Isn't it?" My father's voice was sharper now. "I wonder what Daniel would think if he knew you were meeting with divorce attorneys before the engagement." Silence. I smirked. "Gotcha." Then, Olivia did exactly what I expected. She panicked. I was just covering my bases," she stammered. "You know, just in case." "I would never." "You would," my father interrupted. "You did. You tried to steal from us." I stepped into the room then, arms crossed. "By the way," I said, holding up my phone, "this whole conversation recorded." Olivia's face drained of color. "Daniel's going to hear all of it," I continued, "including the part where you admitted to planning for a divorce before the engagement." She looked at me, then at my father. Then, she did what all scammers do when they're caught. She switched to begging. "You don't have to do this," she said desperately. "I love Daniel." "No, you love his money." And then, before she could come up with another excuse, the office door swung open. Daniel stood there. His face was unreadable. And then he spoke. "So it's true." For a long moment, no one spoke. The weight of the moment settled over the room like a thick fog. Olivia opened her mouth to say something, to lie, to manipulate, to do whatever she always did to get her way, but Daniel raised a hand, stopping her. "I want to hear it," he said quietly. "The whole recording." I didn't hesitate. I pressed play. Olivia's own words filled the room. "Just a little longer. He's completely under my control. Once we get access to his trust fund, we're set." Then, the conversation with my father. I was just covering my bases, just in case. Every sentence, every scheme, every plan Olivia had whispered behind Daniel's back, laid out in clear, undeniable evidence. Daniel's face darkened with every passing second. I had never seen my brother like this before. He was always the nice guy, the one who believed in love and trust. But now? Now, he was staring at Olivia like she was a complete stranger. Because that's exactly what she was. "You lied to me," he finally said. His voice was eerily calm, but his hands were clenched into fists. "This whole time, you were using me." Olivia's eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape. "Daniel, I..." "Save it," he snapped, his voice cold. "I don't want to hear it." She tried again. "I love you." "No, you love my money." Those words, my words, coming out of his mouth. It was all the confirmation I needed. Daniel was finally seeing the truth. I watched Olivia's carefully constructed world crumble in real time. "No," she whispered. "This isn't fair." She turned to my father. "You set me up." "You set yourself up," he countered. "We just gave you the rope." Olivia's breathing grew erratic, her mask slipping away. "You can't do this." I gave up everything for Daniel." My brother laughed, but there was no humor in it. Oh really? What, exactly, did you give up? She had no answer. Because the truth was, she had gained everything, money, luxury, access to our family's resources. And now? She was losing it all. Daniel took a deep breath, as if steadying himself. You need to leave. Olivia's head snapped up. What? Get out, he repeated, his voice firm. We're done. She let out a shaky laugh. You're joking. Do I look like I'm joking? For the first time since I met Olivia, I saw real panic in her eyes. Daniel, please. I made a mistake, but I love you. We can work through this. Daniel shook his head. You don't love me. You never did. Then, he turned to me. Call security. That was all I needed to hear. I stepped out of the office, calling the estate's security team. By the time I walked back in, Olivia had completely lost her composure. She was begging now. To Daniel. To my father. To me. But no one was listening. 2 security guards entered the room. Is there a problem, sir? Daniel didn't hesitate. Escort her out. She's not welcome here anymore. Olivia's face twisted with anger. You can't do this to me. I smiled. Watch us. The guards took her by the arms. She struggled, but there was nothing she could do. She was finished. As she was dragged toward the door, she shouted her final words at Daniel. You're making a huge mistake. You'll regret this. I could have made you happy. Daniel's response was simple. I was happy. Until I found out the truth. And with that, Olivia was gone. Epilogue, we win. The days that followed were quiet. Daniel was heartbroken, but more than that, he was furious. He wasn't just grieving a relationship, he was coming to terms with the fact that the woman he had loved had been playing him from the very start. She never loved me, he admitted one night, sitting in the lounge with a glass of whiskey in his hand. I was just a paycheck to her. I sat beside him, nodding. Yeah. But at least you saw it before it was too late. He chuckled bitterly. Thanks to you. I shrugged. That's what brothers are for. He exhaled slowly, staring into his glass. I should have listened to you from the start. It's okay, I said. She was good at what she did. But she's gone now. He nodded, finally looking lighter. Yeah. She is. As for Olivia? She tried everything to get back into Daniel's life. She sent messages. Showed up at his apartment. Even tried to spin the story online, painting herself as the victim. But it didn't matter. No one believed her. And with the evidence we had against her? Let's just say she wouldn't be scamming anyone again for a long, long time. Daniel had learned his lesson. And in the end, our family won. Because the thing about snakes like Olivia? They always think they're the smartest person in the room. Until they meet someone smarter. Thank you for watching the video, like it if you watched the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.